DNA of the soul.
Welcome, I'm your host Kenny, and you're listening to Social Sleuth. You know the drill, we're back to yap. For this episode, we have a very special guest, my mom. I have a lineup of questions about internet culture, some things I know she'll want to talk about that are happening online, and some geared towards her Gen X motherly mind. Let's dive in.
Drum roll, please. Can anybody guess?
Welcome, Mom. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. If you've ever wanted to be a fly on the wall in my living room, here you are. I guess I'll jump right into a question that I've asked a few other guests before. How do you define a meme?
Seriously?
For real. Doesn't have to be that deep.
A meme to me is just a funny joke, taking whether it be political or satire or just making fun of something. They have a place in this world.
They have a place in this world? You're pro meme?
I am pro meme.
And then I guess to kind of get an idea of who you are, what side of the internet are you on? Or when you're using the internet, what do you see?
Right now, I see a ton of political stuff, just with everything that's going on in the world right now. My algorithm has changed. I'm pretty good at keeping puppy dogs and kitty cats mixed in there. I like to mix it up, but for the most part, I'm always on X. So I'm constantly being fed the various narratives of the world.
Absolutely. Do you think that was like what you see on the internet is a conscious choice of things that you're interested in and are looking up, or more of being fed to you and then you're more engaged by it so it keeps reinforcing itself?
I think it's definitely being curated to me. Having other platforms, or even looking, like I have 2 X accounts, and I use one for very different purposes because I use it for business. So the content that I'm being fed is a very different niche of things, whereas the one that I use regularly for more personal use is definitely catered to the information that I've previously seeked, and it just continues to feed me.
Awesome. And I actually have a meme to show you, to ask you a question about it. For people listening, there was a time when we respected the computer, and then it's sort of a computer desk and all set up, how you'd maybe see in the early 2000s. And I will attach it to my Substack so you can see it for yourself. But here's one.
I don't have my glasses on.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then another one around the same idea, right? Mm-hmm. And it reminded me of my childhood and booting up the Toshiba
I think
laptop.
our desk also looked like that.
Yeah. I don't remember that quite as vividly, maybe at my grandparents', but booting up the computer and putting in like disc games and all of these things. But to get back to my question, you've obviously been around a few years longer than me. How do you think social media, from when MySpace or Facebook, and just the internet as a whole, has changed over your life? Maybe that's a really broad question, but if you could chunk it.
Yeah, like when I was growing up, we didn't have computers. Like I remember we did have a computer in the house probably as I was entering like my early teens, but it was strictly just for like typing documents. Like we also had a typewriter, so it was pretty much the same thing, except it was on a screen. Other than that, we didn't have like internet access or anything like that. I had a friend that had video games and access to the internet, but it was very, very limited. And I'm pretty sure it was only connected to the university that her parents worked at. So that was like my earliest experience, and that would have been probably like the early 90s. And then by the late 90s, I do remember we had more like, there was online dating and you could do very limited searches on the internet. still didn't really use it a whole lot until probably like mid 2000s, probably right around the time that like Facebook started to kind of get more.
Was that 2005, I think?
2007, in around there maybe. But that was kind of like, it was exciting because you could find old friends that you had lost contact with, and you could see what was going on with like grad classes. I think the first thing I remember doing on the internet prior to Facebook was a class search. It was your year, and you could find your group of people that you went to school with.
Oh, that's cool.
And then Facebook, I think, came out shortly after that, like within the same year or so. And then everybody kind of just moved over to Facebook, and it's been nonstop since. I don't remember a time really in recent years that there's been any major advances. It seems to be just everything's just rolling and just kind of like it is.
Yeah, just more volume than anything.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Oh, I guess social media and the family, kind of like a broad topic. Sort of these archetypes or stereotypes or challenges. I know a lot of the times we're talking about different mommy bloggers that we each follow for whatever reason, obviously for different reasons and different people. What's your perspective on that? What do you think of it?
I am really glad that there was no social media when you were little, because I would have definitely been trying to keep up with all these mommy bloggers and all the fun things that they're doing. Like, I crafted a ton with you. Like, obviously, remember that? We're always doing some sort of activity. And I think that if I had access to Pinterest or Instagram the way that I see it now, we would have been out of control.
Out of control.
It would have been out of control.
And I guess it kind of feeds into another question I have, more of like social media and children. And like, yeah, growing up, I feel like I had pretty decent rules around it. And just as I grew up with it, it was sort of like at an age-appropriate age.
Yeah, it kind of just happened that way.
It wasn't the wild, wild west. Like when I was early adopting, it was still quite controlled in a way.
Yeah, you had like your own kids' websites that we had full access
or
to.
Even
I was also very strict.
You were very strict, but even Instagram was just people you followed, and you could go on the explore page, but it wasn't what it is now. And there was not as many people creating content, and not as much content catered towards children. So and the algorithms weren't really the same.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm assuming, because I do, like, you see so many different types of people on various different types of social media.
Yeah.
And how its impact on children, either using it or being the stars of channels as well, whether by themselves or their parents are sort of overseeing it. Like, obviously a safety and a privacy concern.
Mm-hmm.
As a mom.
Yeah, I'm not sure I really would want to be a parent to a young preteen or even early teenage years nowadays, just with the sheer volume of information that's on there. I'm not a fan of like people putting their little kids on there. I just don't think that it's a place for little kids, and especially ones that it's focused on the little kids. It's one thing when it's like the mommy bloggers and they have their kids around and they're doing fun things with the kids. I don't think that that's a big deal, but
like sort of in the background.
In the background,
like, this is
like,
my life.
Exactly, like, or like these are the outfits of the day or whatever with the kids. Because I follow a couple that that's what they do. Like, they show all of the outfits of the day and they all match and they're all adorable. But I don't like the ones that it's little kids focused, whether it be it's their dancing or they're showing off their outfits. I just don't think that little kids should be doing things themselves without showing. It's kind of like when the parents aren't in the picture, it kind of like opens it up like as if it's the kid only. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't feel very protective as a parent. Does that make sense?
Like vulnerable?
Vulnerable. They're subject to who knows what. There's so many creeps out there. I would just be worried that my kid would be subject to that. And then as soon as I'm not around, do they feel like, oh, well, they're still comfortable because they get to be on it, the face of their page? Are they getting to use it by themselves in private? And then those conversations or secret accounts, that sort of thing. I think that keeping the internet limited to children that are just
trying to figure out
the world, let kids be kids. We don't have enough of that. And like kids having temper tantrums at 10 and 11, not being allowed to have a phone is just mind boggling to me. But I'm also not a parent of today. So I don't know how I would navigate it. We were very lucky in the sense of like, you were good. You played sports. We knew where you were.
Yeah, I had a phone so that I could, when I walked to and from school. And then as I got older, then there was smartphones and it was sort of like
I didn't even think the smartphones came out until you were what, like 13?
Yeah, I would have been in middle school.
Yeah.
Like the first iPhone.
But which is like, I feel like if you're out on your
iPhones.
own, it's appropriate to have a phone at 13.
That's what I mean. Yeah, be able to keep in contact, but
don't need the
a phone that can make calls and send texts with buttons is a lot different than today's phones,
where it takes 20 minutes to send a text message.
Yeah, I could put my phone. I did. It happened, and it still worked through the washing machine and the dryer.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
That was funny. So I guess another maybe area of your expertise or somewhere that you are in the digital space, social media and the wellness industry, I think is just quite the conversation, to say the least. I think there's lots of issues with legitimacy and there's issues with trust. Also see a lot of MLMs sort of integrating into this space. It's also really oversaturated.
Yeah, it is.
But what do you make of it? Because I think that there's also a lot of really good resources online because of social media and because of just these integrated chains of communication. And even think of like Reddit forums that are disability focused and how they can offer people like advice of advocating for themselves. And so if we're thinking of that as another digital space, it's really kind of hard because there's some wins and some losses.
Yeah, it's a hard one because so like growing up in a house, like we were generally very holistic and whatnot. I find that a lot of the information that is out, not all of it, there's a lot of good information out there, especially in niches, like endometriosis or Alzheimer's or whatever it may be. There is some good information out there. However, there's a lot of dangerous information out there. There's a lot of information being put out that like I see and I've read up on it and I understand it. And you're just sitting there going like, this can't be out there. Like this is bad for people. People are going to hurt themselves, or they aren't body aware. They just, okay, well, I'm going to jump on this fad. And I find that there's a lot of fads that go through cycles.
Well, you kind of see it like it used to be in magazines.
Yeah.
Like I say it all the time, but I still just remember in the grocery store seeing the women eating cotton balls as like some early 2000s fad diet. Like going to the grocery store with grandma and like that's just at eye level for kids.
Yeah, I totally forgot about it. I guess it's just now moved to media and now everybody is getting it, not just the people reading it.
Everyone can say something about it and say their stupid hot take. And
yeah, I think that there's some good. I wish that more people would educate themselves on things before jumping on bandwagons. Unfortunately, it's just not the reality of today's instant gratification of the dopamine hits that we're getting from social media.
Yeah. And
the trust. People put a lot of trust in the people that they follow, right? So I may look at somebody and be like, this advice is so horrible, but they're energetic and people gravitate towards them. So they take their word as gospel, and it's scary. And, those sorts of things kind of bother me in the wellness, especially in the holistic wellness space.
I think we also sometimes brush over the monetary aspect of creating content online. And if we're looking at surveillance and surveillance capitalism, and whether it's individual creators that are getting paid to misrepresent things or say things that they're not entirely sure is true. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're not actively lying, but they're still a part of a misinformation train or disinformation.
Yeah.
But then there's also wellness companies or pseudo wellness companies
Yeah.
that have a real vested interest in looking at things that you may be interested in and then selling you something, whether it be vitamins or an app or this or that. And it's not necessarily coming from a good place as an individual creator or a person that works in your community. And because we're not shelling out any money, we don't think of it necessarily all the time as this person, like there's a monetary investment as to why they would be doing this. Not just out of the goodness of their heart. Hard to believe, I know. Oh, I guess, so do you have any advice for people as to either where to go online or things to look out for? How do you make sure that you're reading good information that you feel that you can trust? Like for myself, I like to cross-check things with various different sites. Maybe there's some blog posts because I think anecdotal evidence can be a positive thing to look at. Oh, it can be skewed, absolutely, and it's not foolproof. It's not perfect science.
Yeah, I'm trying to go to well, it's hard now because I find that a lot of access has changed over the years. A lot of studies that I remember reading, I've never been able to find again, especially ones that go against the mainstream media or the main narrative. I generally am also fed content that applies to me. So it's already either information that I kind of generally understand, like the process of maybe that modality or that vitamin or whatever. But I often will go, look and cross-reference stuff and Google stuff and read the studies on it.
Sorry, I realized after asking you the question too that you made a really good point, is that you're coming into it with actual real life information and lived experience through one-on-one meeting with practitioners, being married to a practitioner.
I've had a lot of privilege knowing a lot of doctors.
Going through so many different medical streams and really taking ownership over your health and listening and remembering those sorts of things. So you're coming into it with a little bit more self-awareness of the information that you're looking at in the health and wellness industry and are able to sort of filter out what some kooky online
gimmicky thing
or oh, that's something that they were talking about before. This is so great that there's more information and more research coming out on it. I'm going to look into this and this seems promising.
Yeah, like women's health, I like to think especially with specific women's health topics, there is stuff that for a while there was well, I know everything and I don't need to learn anymore. I don't need to know any more information, even though it affects me on a day-to-day basis still. I just got in my head that nothing has changed. And it wasn't until the last few years that I realized women's health has gone through a lot more studies and I need to open my eyes and start reading stuff again. And I've kind of gotten back into that over the last few years. Again, probably because of social media feeding me stuff and I'm questioning it. And then I go and I look for it, whether it be, I go to doctors that I know and trust, their opinions on, looking for studies through the PubMed or NIH, because when I was in school, those were the two that we were directed to use. But yeah, just checking to see where there's contradictions in what is being said. And if you're not finding any, but you're finding evidence that supports it, then it's probably a legitimate source to kind of keep referencing.
I think the main point that we're also both making too is that
research. Yeah. Educate yourself.
Or the headlines that you're reading or the information that you're trying to get, you're not going to find what you need or what you should be looking at on the social media page or on that post and on that content. You need to swipe out of that app and go directly to the Googles or whatever
and
search engine you're using and actually seek out separate information, because
even
it's short, it's rapid, the context is lacking.
And just because it says MD or doctor in the title of
I could go and change my bio right now.
Exactly. But also there's a couple of people that doctors that I follow that I really enjoy their content. However, even though I trust what they're saying, I still fact check them because what they've researched and what they learned might not align with what is good for my body, because that's another thing, is that like we need to learn how to look after ourselves.
And a doctor is still just one person, and one person can be so many different things than just, I wear my doctor outfit, so I am the same as any other doctor. No, there's going to be variance in between for sure. I have another question for you. And we've kind of touched a little bit on, very briefly, on surveillance. And then also this podcast also focuses on algorithms and censorship and surveillance in like more broader context. And I wonder, because I know that you're aware of it, digital currencies are sprouting up across the world. It's a goal for a lot of countries to move into a digital currency system. And then we also know that we have surveillance, government surveillance over our social media channels. Mm-hmm. Sure, probably most of us are not that important and they're not really watching it that closely. But it is something that
I'm sure our house is on the watch list, thanks to your research in school.
Yeah, I Google a lot of wacky things. But it is something our government has access to, and we've seen the use of social media sort of locating people within different discourses and physical spaces during the Canadian trucker convoy. Mm-hmm. And that resulted in those people's bank accounts being frozen. And if you, now being so many years after it, take out all of the political anger that Canada felt so divided about, and let's think of it in very maybe basic terms, as like, these are people that are protesting, anti-government, whether their reaction feels justified to you and within the scope of bounds as a separate issue, but then being targeted financially and having all of their like
assets frozen, or their
banking frozen. How does that make you feel when you're on the web? Like, it obviously doesn't stop me from Googling wacky things, because I'm not doing anything.
I do censor myself. There's a lot of times that I just want to call people out and say like things that I don't agree with. Often type things and then delete
them,
because I do see what's going on in the UK, and I'm terrified that happens here. Because it is very serious that there's people like literally being arrested for liking or commenting on posts that go against the government's narrative. And, you know, when you look at what happened with the trucker convoy, it's not far off to think that somebody could come and knock on my door. There's people in Canada that are being warned of the verbiage that they're using on social media. And we've seen it in Ontario, and it's scary. So sometimes it's easier just to say nothing, but that's exactly what they want us to do, is say nothing.
Yeah, I think back to my surveillance class, and it was sort of crazy to think that in a capstone class that we had a professor that genuinely needed to remind us that we do have a freedom of thought, we do have a freedom of expression, and we have a freedom of assembly. And for some reason in a digital space, those rights or expectations to be able to do that online doesn't exist. The Canadian government proved that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And sure, there was physical actions that those people that had their assets frozen or their bank accounts frozen took, but it was the fact that it was sort of used to locate them and target them, because there was hundreds, if not, I don't know, thousands maybe, of protesters. And it was very specific, very vocal online personalities that were the ones that were picked. So I think if it was everybody that was there and they figured out everybody's names by facial recognition or something, I think that would be a lot different of an argument, because that would be more of a criminal investigation process, and
as opposed to like a targeted
attack. But this definitely seems that no, we're looking at people online, what they're doing online, to specifically pick them because they cast a wide social net. But sorry, to bring it back to my point, like, we have all of these rights and it's not protected in these digital spaces. is that right or wrong? I don't know. But
we should be able to feel comfortable speaking our mind.
Mm-hmm. And that reminder also came with the evidence of all these other countries that we would consider to be free countries also experiencing periods of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people laugh and think that, oh, it's not that serious. I'm not that important online.
That's exactly what the people thought in the UK.
Yeah.
That are being arrested and taken from their homes.
And I think to add to my point as well, it's not what's okay to say today.
Might not be okay tomorrow.
The internet lasts forever. It's out there. And maybe you delete it. Someone probably screenshotted it.
Oh, yeah, totally. If especially it was outlandish or anything like that, of course.
I was telling you about the filmmaker in Brazil. Their post,
yes.
Their satirical post was up for 15 minutes. And he had 144 defamation cases against him.
This is wild.
Different
Absolutely
thing,
wild.
I guess, not really. He was able to beat them, but it wasn't an easy thing to do. But yeah.
Yeah, it's scary out there, and things change so quickly. I don't really have a whole lot of trust to like make comment on posts and not have that sitting in the back of your mind that like, yeah, they could just show up and arrest me or charge me.
And it's not even a conversation of hateful speech or discriminatory speech.
Just disagreeing
it's just or political dissent that is being targeted specifically. Because we shouldn't be we shouldn't be threatening people online. We shouldn't be discriminating against people online. It's the same.
No, it doesn't.
The right comes with a responsibility, and you should be allowed to say things and let other people tell you if you're out of your mind.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
for sure.
There's this discourse, and then we lose that, and then people become more radicalized. They become more polarized because they aren't able to sort of get this live feedback. The easy solution is to go outside and touch grass and interact with real human beings that can provide that for you. And you're still luckily allowed to express yourself and assemble and do all these things in real life for the most part, other than the trucker convoy. But that is an easy solution, is to touch grass. But
yeah, it's
like you said, since this 2005 or whenever it was, it's just been continuous. And sure, there's lots of people that aren't on social media and aren't chronically online, like myself. But it gets harder. I think of how many apps you have for your job and how many different social medias that are just
every day,
just work social media.
I must have social media, just the sheer number of apps that you have to navigate, just in my work environment. That I have to go
through chains of communication and
it's wild. Like if my internal work Teams isn't going off, I've got Workplace going off, but then I also have my WhatsApp going off. Like it's
and sure, those are facets of a job, but if it works on this digital screen,
but it also social stuff pops up.
Yeah,
right. So then you're seeing other people's content. You go down rabbit holes. Then you you're constantly inundated with new information via various social media platforms. LinkedIn. It really doesn't, you can never really escape it.
The worst social media ever.
Huh?
The worst social media ever.
Fair.
You heard it here first, social sleuthers. How are we doing? I guess I could ask you, because you're my mom. You've probably influenced my values and my beliefs about certain things.
I would hope so.
But comedy and satire in meme format, and then seeing it labeled as misinformation or hate speech or being shadow banned, there's the account that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And what do you think of that? Because I just think it's so stupid. I talked about it on my last episode with Matthew about how those disclaimers are sort of just slapped on top, and by the time they get on there, the damage, air quotes, damage has already been done. But what do you make of that? Do you see that ever? I haven't seen it lately, but
What, the shadow banning?
Well, shadow banning I still do see.
Or the disclaimers?
The disclaimers.
I'm trying to think.
And even trying to categorize or why a very clearly comedic piece of content, like a meme.
Yeah, I've never really understood why memes, unless it's like violence or grotesque or sexual, I don't, and even sexual, like just certain like imagery, I think that, yeah, having a warning on it, sure. But like comedy, satire, stuff like that, like I don't understand why we need to censor that.
Like, I think a meme mocking a conspiracy theory is not reinforcing a conspiracy theory.
No.
Like, unless you're already like attuned that way as a person, but just as an image.
Yeah, no, I honestly could not say that a meme would influence me in the way to like
be radicalized
or think it was serious.
Yeah.
Like I don't take things that like I do take things serious, but not when it comes to like jokes. I also grew up in a very sarcastic house, very cheeky house. And like you were raised with sarcasm.
Yeah, just like,
so we've always treated like humor is exactly that. And like we probably would be classified as bullies in our house for sure. Because we're always like,
we're listening and we're judging.
We are always listening. We are always judging. But we're always picking on each other in the funnest ways. So like when I see something that is funny, I don't take it personally. Like there's a lot of memes out there that I'm like, that's dumb, or I don't care for it. Also, but I wouldn't like
to step outside of a meme. I think that this is a tricky statement because it really comes down to like exactly explicitly what is in like a tweet or an X post or whatever you want to call it, or threads or Blue Sky, whatever anybody's on.
There's too many.
There's way too many. I don't really go on any of those ones, to be honest. No. But when I don't ever go on and open up my social media and think that anything written there, unless my name is tagged, is directed at me.
Have you ever had something your name tagged?
No. I'm not that popular.
Whoa. That's cool.
Yeah.
No, if it reminds me of you, I'll just send it to you and be like this is you.
The comedy show I went to, like one of the whole entire bits was just totally trashing white women. I'm a white woman. I don't care.
What? I just found out.
Like, maybe it is directed personally at me. Okay. Moving on.
But it doesn't define who you are as an individual.
No, and think that if you want to think that, like, it's just
Did you laugh?
Oh, I was killing myself laughing. It was so true. It was true.
Like, the stereotypes were true.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
It's a stereotype. It's an archetype. Sure, they can be damaging if they're used in derogatory or oppressive ways, but specifically white women are not being oppressed, and it's not being used in a derogatory way.
No.
Period. But I don't know, it's just so stupid to me.
Yeah,
maybe I'm ignorant. I'm okay with that if that keeps my peace on the web.
Yeah. Like, there's bigger fish to fry. I don't know, like, things blowing up. Like, hit it head on. Have fun with it.
As a member of the snowflake generation, don't be a snowflake.
You were not raised to be a snowflake.
No, but
you're not allowed.
I wasn't allowed. Sometimes I really want to be.
And then you're told to suck it up, buttercup.
Is there any other topics you'd like to talk about the internet and algorithms and
Andrew Tate? Let's talk about Andrew.
You want to talk about the Manosphere?
No.
You can. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I don't know if I have any thoughts on the Manosphere.
Just because I know that you know a lot about this, because I've told you a lot about it either reading or doing projects or writing about it.
But did I listen?
We'll find out. About Snowden.
Okay. What about him?
Just like what? So there's obviously, this isn't a super cheery episode of like, these are all the issues with surveillance and surveillance capitalism and algorithms, and it's obviously doing something socially and politically to us, some for good, some for bad. But some of this bad, like he was a whistleblower for this, like national defense.
It was national defense, I think.
Using like through Verizon and AT&T.
Yeah.
Like cell phone logs and being able to see all this information and put all this information out. It went before Congress. And then, as far as I'm aware, and I feel like I'm pretty aware, nothing has really changed. Like maybe they're not using the cell phone companies, maybe they still are, but the outlook on how the internet is used, people's perception of how much they're being watched, I don't feel like has really changed since. But like, so not to like, the film was from 2016. I think it was like a few years before that this came out. I don't know. I was in middle school. I wasn't paying attention.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I didn't really hear anything about, like, I knew about Snowden, but I didn't really know what it was about until like really recently. I don't think I really knew a whole lot about like the more detail of it until he was on, I think, Joe Rogan.
Oh, I forgot he was.
I think that was kind of like when
I thought I made you watch the movie with me.
We did, but I think it was after we had seen it on Joe Rogan.
I have no idea.
I don't
just
know.
Leads us into a more depressing tone. But there's all of these issues, and I think there's solutions for people to get offline, but that's not always an option.
Yeah.
Depending on your lifestyle and your needs. But he pointed out such a major flaw and this major gap that puts a lot of privacy at risk, because it's not just the Americans' own government. They're then partnered with foreign governments, sure that they trust them, but this is still so many people having access directly to personal communications, and it would be so much easier through web-based infiltration, because I'm a big tech person that knows about this stuff. No, but like it would be so much easier to either just have like fake accounts or from the back end through private companies. They're not hack resistant. It's not perfect. There's options, but I don't know, other than the other nerds in my class and not even all of them, there's not a lot of people that are really concerned by that. Like they don't think that they're not doing anything wrong, so they have nothing to hide, which like fair enough.
But that's kind of not what the point is.
But I think that we should be concerned about this overreach in our privacy.
Absolutely.
I'm sure someone would counter the argument of like, well, you signed the terms and conditions.
We do sign our rights away a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. When was the last time you sat and actually read the T&Cs of something?
I literally have never done it because ignorance is bliss in that regard. But I'll be mad about the things that I signed about. I'm not perfect.
You're like, I don't have an option?
No, the companies know exactly what's happening. If you want to participate, and maybe that's also coming to with like the age of adoption of, well, you need to get on these things. Like I remember I didn't have Facebook until I was 16, and the only reason that I had it was because I was the like treasurer of a school club.
Secretary.
The secretary. Yeah, they wouldn't let me do the math. I was the secretary of the Key Club, and the only form of communication we all used was Facebook Messenger. So like that's why I was on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's so if you want to be a part of these things,
you have to agree to the terms.
You're not reading through those terms and conditions. Well, it's even like this isn't social media, but like I guess an internet-based thing. But Disney Plus, I also don't know if this is real. This could have just been a headline. It wasn't something I cared to look into that much more. Just some internet brain rot. But the guy that had signed Disney Plus, and then he got injured in the park or something, or like hit by a Disney bus, and he wasn't allowed to sue for the physical harm because of whatever was in the terms and conditions of Disney Plus.
That is ridiculous. It's two different entities. Like, but I guess that just shows
they can write whatever they want in there. They obviously have big money lawyers that can put whatever they need to or want to in those terms and conditions that protect their company and is legal in a sense.
They're legalese.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's just wild.
Mm-hmm. Like, I love to be hypercritical. In case you didn't know, Mom. But there is a level of ownership, and I have my own responsibility to protect myself. Yeah, online. Do better than me. Read your terms and conditions. I'm still not going to start. I'm not going to start. I've already signed them all away. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably sign most of my rights away. Mm-hmm. I might not even own you. You might not even be my child for all I know.
Whoopsies!
I really wanted that free fry.
Yeah. It's just, I guess, analog sleazy salesmen have just adapted their medium.
Yeah, pretty much.
Salespeople.
The internet is wild. The internet is just wild.
I love it and I hate it.
I love it and I hate it at the same time, and
I'm gonna keep using it and keep
so
complaining.
weird not to have it. Like, sure enough, like when we try and like not consume it at certain periods of time, like when we go away, that's about it. But we are on our social media a lot.
I've gotten my screen time down, but I
don't think that we're on it nearly as much as a lot of other people. Like,
do you think?
Yeah, like I spend a lot of time. I'm on doom scroll.
You spend a lot of time on the internet. So do I. I've gotten my screen time down. I will not share how much.
I always have my X running though, like in the background while I'm working.
Yeah, that counts.
That's
an 8-hour day. You put in an 8-hour day at the algorithm factory,
and then usually a couple of hours on either side.
10-hour day at the algorithm factory.
Closer to 12.
Oh, sorry, getting overtime. But yeah, I need my laptop time. I have to have my laptop out. I gotta scroll the websites. Gotta read the headlines.
I have like my little routine of like I need to hit certain things each day.
To go down some tunnels, some rabbit holes, if you will.
Yeah, I'm just glad I'm not on Substack.
That doesn't even like. Don't get me wrong. I love reading people's things.
Well, I've gone on it. I have it, and I go on it every once in a while. But when I go on it, that's it. 3 hours gone.
I was up last night reading this woman's post. It was so good. It was like a whole magazine editorial of like all these different hot topics that she wanted to talk about. Great. And then I said, "What am I doing?" And I put down the phone and I went to bed. Actually, I'm not just saying that for the recording. I did do that. But yeah.
I really need to like not look at my social media in the morning.
Yeah, that'd be a good start.
I need not wake up to my phone. No. Maybe I'll get a old school alarm clock.
That's crazy.
That's crazy talk.
That'd be way too loud.
Well, no, I don't have to have it like a bell one. I could get like just like a one with like a radio on it. And then I can leave my phone in another room.
Well, that's actually something that people are doing online, which is getting offline. Ironic, I know. With Hatch alarm clocks, which are like just an old school alarm clock, but gentrified. And have you seen the Barbie phone?
I think so.
They're bringing back the flip phone.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can have like this,
or even the mini iPhones. I think those still have internet,
not be able
but
to
it's so small that you would only use it out of necessity.
Yeah, I have like the world's largest phone. Maybe not the world's largest, but you know what I mean. I have the Big Apple.
But yeah, people are trying to like get offline. Hyper consumerism, yes, but still fun. Well, and getting film cameras or just a digital camera to have this separation of not needing to be on your phone, but still wanting to capture things. Throwing it back. Ooh. Thank you, Mummy, for coming on my podcast. I will have listeners know that my mother has yet to listen to a single episode of my podcast. I'm her only child.
So I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I'll remember at Mother's Day.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I don't do anything else.
No. No. Good for nothing.
I'm good for nothing and supportive.
Yeah.
How about I listen to those this week?
Heard that before, everybody. But no, thank you for coming on my podcast. That was really fun.
It was fun.
You'll have to do it again.
If I'm allowed.
If you're allowed. Yeah, we'll listen back to
I'm
it.
very quiet tonight. I'll get rowdy next time.
Any final words?
Educate yourselves.
Okay. That's good.
In life decisions. I'm not saying go get a university degree. That is not what this lady over here is saying. I'm just saying make educated decisions on everything in your life. And stop following other people's just suggestions or the media, the social media suggestions. Your friends know you better than the people that are on social media. So listen to your friends. Don't
Absolutely.
listen to the random strangers that don't give a rat's ass about you.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Just, yeah.
You should follow my mom's advice. I did not. I almost got into a stranger's car last week. They seemed really nice. But she's right. Don't trust the strangers.
About it. That's all I got. That's my motherly advice.
Well, it's my podcast, so I have 2 bits on that. Also, be kind. And I've been trying to do this thing where we don't necessarily have, maybe this is a gentle parenting Gen Z take, but just promote people and share things that you really like. But maybe you don't have to rain on someone's parade, because if they're doing what works for them is working for them, you don't need to pee in their cornflakes.
That was so PC of you.
Bye! Thanks for listening to me and my rowdy mom. We hope you enjoyed and we didn't ramble too much. Thanks for listening to Social Sleuth. See that meme I was talking about and other episodes of Social Sleuth at KennyC402 at Substack. Yeah, everything's there that you need to see. Keep sleuthing.